Not because you're failing, but because you're measuring yourself age. Imagine two people. Both begin at the exact same starting line. Neither possesses extraordinary intelligence. Neither comes from wealth. Neither has special connections. But 20 years later, one becomes the person everyone admires, while the other spends his life wondering what went wrong. And here's the unsettling part. The difference wasn't talent. In fact, psychologists have discovered that talent is often overrated. Because some of the most successful individuals in history didn't possess extraordinary gifts. Instead, they mastered something far more powerful. Invisible psychological mechanisms. Mechanisms that quietly influence every decision, every habit, and ultimately, every destiny. And if you fail to understand these forces, you can spend your entire life working hard, yet still remain stuck. Because success isn't always determined by intelligence. Sometimes, it's determined by psychology. And the first psychological principle that separates winners from everyone else is something your brain absolutely hates. 1. Delayed gratification. Human beings are ancient creatures living in a modern world. Thousands of years ago, survival depended on immediate rewards. Food, shelter, safety. The future was uncertain, which is why the human brain evolved to prioritize instant pleasure. But modern success demands the opposite. Studying instead of scrolling. Saving instead of spending. Practicing instead of quitting. Psychologists call this ability delayed gratification. And according to one of the most famous experiments ever conducted, children who learned to resist immediate temptation generally experienced better life outcomes years later. Not because they were smarter, but because they developed mastery over their impulses. Because winners understand something most people never do. Discipline is remembering what you want most, instead of what you want right now. 2. The compound effect. People are obsessed with dramatic transformations. But nature doesn't work dramatically. It works gradually. Mountains are shaped gradually. Forests grow gradually. And success follows the exact same pattern. One workout. One page. One skill. One decision. Individually, they seem insignificant. But repeated consistently, they become unstoppable. This phenomenon is known as the compound effect. Tiny actions multiplied by time create extraordinary outcomes. Unfortunately, neglect compounds too. Missed opportunities. Bad habits. Small excuses. Years later, people call it bad luck. It was simply accumulated choices. Because destiny is rarely created in a single day. It is built quietly, while nobody is watching. 3. Emotional regulation. Anyone can remain calm when life is easy. But pressure reveals character. Psychologists refer to this ability as emotional regulation. The capacity to manage emotions without allowing emotions to manage you. Anger, fear, frustration, disappointment. These emotions are natural. But impulsive reactions often create bigger problems than the original issue. History repeatedly shows that people who control themselves eventually influence others. Because emotional stability creates trust. And trust creates leadership. The strongest people are not those who dominate others. They are the ones who dominate themselves. For the self-sabotage paradox. Strangely enough, most dreams aren't destroyed by enemies. They're destroyed by fear. Fear disguised as procrastination. Fear disguised as perfectionism. Fear disguised as overthinking. Psychologists call this phenomenon self-sabotage. And its purpose is simple. Protection. Because if you never fully commit, you never fully risk failure. But safety comes at a cost. Avoidance becomes identity. People stop saying, I failed. And begin saying, this is who I am. Which is tragic. Because identity shapes behavior. And behavior shapes destiny. 5. Cognitive biases. Human beings like to believe they are rational. But neuroscience tells a different story. Our minds are filled with cognitive biases. Invisible distortions that influence decisions without our awareness. Confirmation bias. Negativity bias. Survivorship bias. Availability bias. These mental shortcuts save energy. But they also create illusions. People search for evidence that supports what they already believe. And ignore evidence that challenges them. Which means growth becomes impossible when the ego values being right more than discovering the truth. Wise individuals understand something extraordinary. Being wrong is temporary. Refusing to learn is permanent. 6. Neuroplasticity. For centuries, people believed personality was fixed. That intelligence was fixed. That character was fixed. Modern neuroscience shattered that belief. The human brain possesses an incredible ability known as neuroplasticity. Meaning your brain continuously rewires itself. Every thought, every habit, every experience, creates neural pathways. Repeated often enough, those pathways become automatic, which means your future identity is being built right now. Not by miracles, not by luck, but by repetition. Because excellence isn't inherited. It is practiced. 7. The social comparison trap. Never before in human history have people compared themselves so frequently. Social media transformed comparison into a lifestyle. People compare salaries, bodies, relationships, success, achievements. Psychologists refer to this as upward social comparison. And while comparison can inspire, excessive comparison destroys peace. Because you are comparing your reality to someone else's presentation. You see their victories, but not their sacrifices, their smiles, but not their anxiety. And eventually, you begin feeling inadequate. Illusions. Winners understand something different. They compete with who they were yesterday, not with strangers. 8. Dopamine addiction. Modern life is engineered to capture attention. Notifications, short videos, instant entertainment. Every swipe releases dopamine. And while dopamine itself isn't harmful, constant stimulation creates dopamine desensitization. Books become boring. Patience disappears. Hard work feels painful. And concentration weakens. People begin chasing pleasure instead of purpose. But winners understand that meaningful success often requires boredom. Because mastery grows in silence, not stimulation. 9. The scarcity principle. Human beings naturally value what appears rare. Time, energy, opportunities. Psychologists call this the scarcity principle, which explains why individuals who constantly seek approval often lose respect. And people who respect their own time naturally attract admiration. Because value isn't created through desperation. It is created through standards. The world notices how you treat yourself, and often responds accordingly. 10. The identity effect. Perhaps the most powerful force in psychology is identity. Because people don't rise to the level of their goals. They fall to the level of their identity. Someone who believes, I am disciplined, acts differently. Someone who believes, I am a victim, acts differently. Identity influences habits. Habits influence actions. Actions influence outcomes. And outcomes eventually become life itself. Which means changing your life often begins with changing the story you tell yourself. Final message. Perhaps the reason some people always seem to win isn't because they were born different. Maybe they simply understood what most people ignore. That success is less about talent and more about psychology. Because talent can be wasted. Luck can disappear. Opportunities can be missed. But a disciplined mind, a resilient identity, and the ability to master yourself can transform an ordinary person into someone